Hi, everybody. Welcome to the MPF webinar. We're going to be talking about maintaining productivity, and we've got Sharon Abrahams with us. Hi, Sharon. Welcome from Miami. And Uri Gutfreund from New York. Welcome, Uri. Glad you're both here. We'll be getting our program shortly, so sit tight. We've got about 150 firms registered today. And as I say, welcome and relax, and we'll begin shortly. So Sharon, how's the weather in Miami today?
We had a little cold front, so it only hit 86.
Oh, cold front in Miami,
It's been in the 90s.
And Uri, what's the forecast in NYC?
Yeah, we are overcast with a high of 52. So I'm very sorry for you, Sharon, at a whole 86. Ooh.
52 is about the lowest low Miami gets every year. We're under a tornado watch here in Atlanta this afternoon. So it's a stormy, windy afternoon with lots of rain in the forecast. So if I go out mid-webinar, everybody will know why.
Well, see, that's how it starts spinning. Is that what
Right.
happened?
It could happen. We've had some volatile fronts come through the past couple of weeks. It's that time of year. But yeah, these have been crazy times the last 6 or 8 weeks. And we've had great, I think these webinars have been really, really well received, very helpful. Uri and I both been getting great feedback from managing partners, law firm leaders who participated.
And I've been attending, and so I can tell that they've been well received, and I've gleaned a lot of really good information as well.
Well, we're here to help. I'm looking at the clock here. We're at 1:58, and our attendees are rolling in, so welcome. This is our 4th installment, and we've been doing a series of these. They're archived on the MPF website, and we've also attached the handout materials from the previous 3 webinars to today's, so you can download that, listen through them if you're interested. We've talked about managing expenses during a downturn. We had Larry Richard come talk to us about the culture and the challenges firms have when folks isolate, and what firm leaders can do to help folks through a very uncertain time. So we're happy to do these. And as well, we do our leadership conference every year. We postponed it this year to September 30, October 1 here in Atlanta. Most folks have slid over their registration, the sponsors, the faculty. The program remains intact. We'll just see if we can pull it off. Got my fingers crossed.
I'm happy to be coming to Atlanta this year instead of Chicago, so that's good.
Well, it is the top of the hour, and I'm going to go ahead and start right in. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the MPF webinar, part of a series responding to the coronavirus pandemic. And today's topic is maintaining productivity when your people work at home. And joining us is Dr. Sharon Abrahams, and we'll introduce Sharon in a moment. And most of you know Uri Gutfreund as well. You should see all of us at the top of your screen, and then our obligatory PowerPoint deck as well. Most of you all know me. I've been running these managing partner programs for some years now. I have a little consulting business on the side. I was an in-house marketer at a couple of big law firms and started consulting in the mid-90s. And we started these managing partner conference in 2002. And they've grown and evolved over the years. And we've had about 1,200 managing partners participate in our programs. So we're glad you're here. And joining me as our co-moderator of this webinar series is Uri Gutfreund. Welcome, Uri. And
thanks, John.
You are welcome. Most of you have met Uri if you come to the conferences. He as well runs managing partner roundtables in New York, New Jersey. He too is on the speaking circuit, does a lot of talks to the ALA, the law firm networks. That's how we met some years ago. And Uri's based in New York. and sells risk management products to law firms, mid-sized, mostly New York, New Jersey, but his practice expands nationally. So Uri, always good to see you. And I like that yellow backdrop you got going on. It says caution, caution. And,
Trying to stand out, trying to stand out here, John. Thank you.
you do. The other day you had that TV on. You looked like
Yeah.
one of the news anchors on the networks with your risk management thing in the background there. That was cool. And our featured speaker today is Dr. Sharon Abrahams. Sharon and I have known each other, since dirt, about 30 years.
We were small children.
We were children at the time. Sharon was working at Greenberg Traurig in a professional development capacity at the time in South Florida. And we've known each other for a long time. She's been a professional development director at McDermott, Chicago-based firm, Foley, an AmLaw 10 firm. So she brings decades of experience on professional development, working with lawyers, law firms of all types and sizes. Sharon's a speaker and participates regularly in our managing partner conference, has her doctorate degree in education from Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So Sharon, welcome. Glad you're here.
Glad to be with you.
Glad you're with us. Thank you so much. Like to just some welcoming remarks, housekeeping stuff, and then we'll share with you our survey results. Many of you participated in an online survey as you registered for today's program. So we like to kick off by showcasing that data, put some things into context. Law firms love data. So we begin with that, and then we'll dive into our conversation with Sharon. Many have provided questions that I will reference, and we'll make sure we attack what's on your minds. And as well, you can type in some polling questions. I'll keep an eye on those things. Steve Maybe from Canada, he's in Halifax, says it's snowing up there. So, could be. What do you think of that, Sharon?
I feel bad.
So we'll get the questions in there. And then our next program, 2 weeks from today, we're going to hone in on that PPP program that so many law firms have applied for, and talk a little bit about forgiveness and finding forgiveness in the PPA program. So stay tuned into that. And we're assembling an interesting expert, an accountant, a banker, and a managing partner who's really studied the PPP loan program. And I think they'll all tell us, there's a lot of uncertainty here and it's changing. So really getting a handle on that and making sure your firm doesn't have to give back too much money to the feds. Here's our survey data. We asked about productivity loss, all things being equal. What is the loss of productivity when people work at home? And here's what our 146 managing partners registered for today's program had to say. 2% say we work more productively at home, but most of you anticipate that we're not as productive overall working from home. The next question we asked, and that's a perception, which Sharon's going to talk a little bit about. That may or may not be reality, because some people are more productive at home. But generally speaking, there's a perception among firm leaders we're losing a heck of a lot of productivity when we work at home. The main reasons, here's what you all had to say. We presented a drop-down menu, pick all that apply. A lot of distractions. No one's looking over your shoulder, maintaining your schedule. People aren't around at the water cooler, and I don't have really a home-based office. So those are the main reasons you all cite as the reasons we lose productivity. Sharon's going to talk about this, eliminating those distractions, providing a little structure, some accountability, and the importance of a home workplace where you can eliminate those distractions. What's the long-term impact of all this? Most of you said, 7 out of 10, this phenomenon is accelerating a lot of long-term trends in terms of remote working, in terms of embracing technology, but this was coming, and this pandemic situation has accelerated some of these changes. Only 5%, 1 in 20 think we're going to, quote, get back to normal. Uri, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, John, I think when we looked at this data, I think this really resonates. All the states across the country have plans now, or putting in plans that are going to get us back to work. And I think, and that's why when we asked Sharon to come do this presentation, John, I was so excited as you were to have her, because I think, and we are seeing this, this is the new normal. I think the idea that the governors or the president or maybe the scientists will snap their fingers and we're going to go back to the way it was. This was a trend. This is what people wanted, and it's important. In fact, it's critical for us to get better. Putting those two slides together from the one before, I think if we took a poll, we didn't ask anyone who would accept 25% less production from their team. I mean, I know what most managing partners would say. Is everybody taking a 25% long-term pay cut? Because that's the only way that can be accomplished, unless, and Sharon's going to start this today, and I'm really excited she's here, unless we can do better. We can't have a 25% reduction. I will also say one other thing, which is, so I'm in New York, and in New York, we had, unfortunately, other national tragedies. September 11th is the one that comes to mind. I bring that up for one reason. During the tragedies, during the displacement, and I would say posit now, people are nicer. The cost of being less productive, at least with your clients, isn't as pronounced. When this moves on to the next phase, your competition's going to be going gung-ho, and your clients are not going to be as forgiving. So we have to learn from the Sharons to do this better, because we're going to have to be more efficient. We're going to have to be more efficient. We can't accept a long-term just lack of productivity and being distracted, et cetera. So this is exactly on point, not just for the time, but as we go back to the new normal, this is permanent. So thank you, John. This is great.
What's interesting, and Larry talks about this, is that lawyers tend not to like change and not to like risk. It took an outside force to kind of impose and accelerate these structural changes, because law firms were a bit slow to perhaps embrace technology and remote working situations, lagging accounting firms, lagging consulting firms, and other professional service environments. So it took this outside pandemic to force this stuff for firms to get real serious about it.
To get real serious about it, but to that point, I wore for many years a D&I hat, diversity and inclusion hat as well. And so it took clients saying, we want a diverse and inclusive environment, and you law firms out there need to do this. And so that's an exact example of the outside telling the law firms what they need to do. But for 20 years, law firms have been thinking about it, working on it, milling it over, and still haven't been successful at it. So to this point, what is the new normal going to look like? We just don't know.
Absolutely. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the call. And the return to office plan. Firms are starting to talk about getting back to work, whatever that means, back to the office, or maybe not. But we asked our group, where are you on setting up your return to office plan? And most are working on it, 2 out of 3. And 1 out of 4, they're talking about it, starting to talk about it. Well, now's the time to start putting that return to office plan in play and figure out what your firm's going to look like next year, the year after. Are you going to move to a more virtual model? We talked about Fisher Broyles as we were assembling this morning. They are a virtual law firm. Or do we want to bring back a bricks and mortar models? For some firms, the lawyers can't wait to get back to the office. Other firms, they're perfectly content working remotely. So it depends on your culture and the model you're trying to build as a firm. You're the leaders of these firms. Time to kind of sort through these issues. And what is it? Winston Churchill said, don't let a good crisis go to waste. But there's stuff we can learn and impose in our culture long term.
John, before you go off that slide, one of the questions that came through the survey, one person had asked for examples of work at home plans and what's in them and all of that. I don't have any to actually share with your audience here because most firms, they're just a work in progress. They don't have anything. But I did make a list of resources, which I didn't get a chance to send to you. I think you attached the Cushman Wakefield document, right, to the materials, that everybody has a copy of that, or they have
They
availability.
will get it after the fact.
They will get it after. So I also wanted to point out that Harvard Business Review has a great article also at Return to Work, which I will get to you so that you can include that. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has some information. Granted, it's not law firm specific, but it has information out there. So as your audience here is looking at creating their content, they need to find places to look for what should be in it. So the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and also the CDC, obviously, for the area, to cover the topics of, you know, how to make the area safe and all of that. So that's a good website to go to. And believe it or not, two others, SHRM, which is Society for Human Resource Management, has also materials on how to return to work, dealing with the staff and the staff issues. And obviously there's a lot of discussion right now about policies, HIPAA policies and testing and all of that. So those are some materials. The American Society of Safety Professionals also has information. So those are the people that work with the OSHA and all that. So that's a website that your people might want to go to. And then obviously your callers belong to firms and have access to other firms' websites that they're already working on materials that are being shared as well. So I just wanted to make sure that we dealt with that before we moved on, because that was one of the questions. All right.
There are many specific to law firms, CB Richard Ellis, ALA, there are other resources. We're going to be sharing those in the coming weeks, and we're going to do a webinar dedicated to this specific topic in the coming weeks. It's amazing the amount of topics that are coming at us from managing partners and thought leaders within the legal profession, and we can't get to them all. You know, we're trying to prioritize and time these, and this being productive working at home sort of slotted in here. So let's come back to our topic at hand, which is the importance of that dedicated home office. We saw distractions, you know, are the number one reason why we're not as productive. So Sharon, speak to us about setting up that place at home where we can focus on our quote work.
So your role as the managing partner of your firm, or the leader, not everybody's a managing partner, but you know, you're a leader in your firm, which is why you're on this call, is really to role model what it is to have a dedicated home office. And you might be fortunate enough, as the three of us, as your panelists here, we all have home space that we have an office in. If you think about your attorneys, I would say most of them probably have a space in their office that they already were using. Sometimes the younger attorneys, maybe not, because they lived in a one-bedroom apartment. And certainly staff, some staff have it and some staff don't. So your role as a managing partner is to really check in. Dr. Larry told us checking in on the psyche of everybody's important, but I'm telling you to check in on tools and technology, which is, you know, the second bullet point. Does everybody have what they need in their designated home space to get their job done? That is very critical, because if you think of Maslow's hierarchy, what people need, you know, food and shelter and all that, but as you move up, people need the tools to be productive. And if that's what we're talking about, I can't be productive if I don't have what I need to do that. So that's important. And when you think about tools and equipment and supplies, how is your firm supplying that? Does everybody have an account number at Office Depot or wherever you get your supplies and they can just order what they need? Is there a clearinghouse that it has to go through? Are you telling people to go ahead and buy it on their own and you intend to reimburse them? Have you communicated all that? And you have to remember, staff, young attorneys sometimes don't have credit card limits that allow them to make a large purchase. Not, we don't want them buying maybe their own laptops, and we'll talk about that in a second, because I know John's very keen on sharing his thoughts about laptops. But you know, as a firm leader,
technology in general is my favorite topic.
But as a firm leader, you need to make sure that your people have what they need to get the job done. And then
Sharon, when we entered this crisis, gosh, I think it's I think I'm on week 7. I'm starting to go a little crazy, but John and I had been doing our roundtables, and John, right? We heard some firms discovered some of their employees didn't have internet at home,
Right.
and
Exactly.
and they were shocked. They were shocked.
Yes,
Right.
they were.
Well, this
There was an
this
assumption that we all
correct.
have an extra bedroom and internet access.
And this is the disparity in a law firm.
Mhm.
The lawyers and the non-lawyers. And a lot of times, people don't understand and I don't like to use the word non-lawyer. I like to use the word staff because nobody's a non-anything. So the staff, the professional staff, don't necessarily have what it is that the lawyers have. They don't have the same level of income. Maybe they have a very large family that they're sharing, with other family members and all that. So I don't need to go down that path.
But let's back up. Let's suppose, Sharon, you do have valuable support staff who are in crowded living
Yes.
environments, and they don't have a quiet place to focus on work. What do we do with that?
All right.
Do
So
we,
let's
do we buy them a bigger place? Do we set them up in an executive office? What do we do?
First in line. No, but it goes back to tools, noise canceling headphones, so that you may be working in your bedroom while your kids and the rest of the family are in the rest of the house, but with noise canceling headphones, they can participate in a conference call. They can participate, the cell phones, you can Zoom from your cell phone. So if people do have cell phones, and not everybody does, some people still have flip phones, but if they had noise canceling headphones, they would. Do you have a flip phone, John? Did I just push a button there? No, I'm teasing.
No, but I think Barack Obama famously maintained. No, he was the BlackBerry guy.
Oh, okay. But so again, the leadership of your firms need to be reaching out to the individuals. And I, as a staff person, might be too embarrassed to say, I don't have space. They could do it from their bathroom. Everybody, I believe, in America has a bathroom, at least that work for a law firm. But something like, what is the tools that they need? These kinds of headphones are not noise canceling headphones. All right. But I will tell you, people who don't work in the legal industry, but work in marketing and stuff like that, where they're all lined up together, close to each other, they all have noise canceling headphones because they're on calls, they're dealing with people, customer service people, stuff like that. So there's tools out there.
And Uri and I were talking about who pays for all this. Does the firm buy all the equipment and the internet account and the telephone account?
And
or do we expect people to just rely on their own devices and resources to establish their home office?
All right, so here's the way to think about it. If you hire me to do a job, I expect you to give me the tools that I need to do my job. That is pretty much the way the world works, right? Now, the world is completely upside down right now. So what are the rules? Well, guess what? Everybody's changing the rules every day. The government changes the rules. Can you sue? Can you not sue? If I get COVID at work, can I sue? Can I not sue? If I'm in a nursing home and my loved one dies, can I sue? Can I not sue? So we don't really know what the answer is. But to me, if a law firm expects somebody to work from a remote environment, they need to give them the tools to do that job. And that is the internet for this period of time. It's the cell phone, or it's the computer, it's the you're not paying their rent, you're not doing that, but you're giving them the tools. And we had a call, before, and you brought up a very valid point, that if I give my employee the tools, I can control them. And so with laptops,
that's my thing.
Security and safety, and even cell phones with AirWatch and things on it that protect. And so if you want your staff to be able to support the attorneys, and security should be an issue, it is an issue for everyone else, it should be an issue. If you give them the tools, you can control all of that. If you say,
well,
oh no,
I want to block Facebook, I want to block porn. Facebook, as we all know, wastes a lot of time, and I have a lot of clients who block certain websites for their people, lawyers and support staff.
Right.
On their devices.
We can keep an eye on
devices.
Firm devices, yes.
We can kind of listen in and monitor.
Right.
If it's our connection, our
Right.
equipment, we have a lot more control.
Yes.
And so I would advise, I think there's a nice return on investment if you buy your people their laptops, their internet accounts, and get them set up.
Right.
For the security, the control, and the ability to monitor their productivity.
Exactly.
Hurry?
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I mean, the one exception I have on that is a lot of computer software that now law firms are buying is more like a tunnel. So I think when you make that argument that I have better security because I'll give them the laptop, a lot of the technology today is more like a tunnel into the office. So it's not really an increased risk that we're sitting on a home machine, let's say. So I think that balance, John, I think is a little sometimes tilted. You might get some pushback from your employees. Look, the only thing we're doing is tunneling in. I don't need a firm laptop. I don't want to be. Look, a lot of people will tell you I don't want to be watched. If that's the deal, I'll use my own home computer. But I think these are good points.
And
Well,
that's what you talk to your technology people about. When I was with a large firm and we used the firm computer, we couldn't access on the firm computer anything, but you can come to the office with your phone, with your personal computer, and still, play during the day. But back to the productivity, the distractions, I think John is saying, if we can shut it down on the firm computers, we at least know you're not wasting the firm computer time. We can see that you're billing, you log in at 8 and you're going and you're working till noon till you have lunch. We see you're online. That doesn't mean though that they're not on their phones playing, because they're doing that in the office too.
well, and
So-
Sharon, you initially had some stuff in these slides. I made you take it out, but the idea of your inbox and how many of us let our inbox control our day, and it can really affect your productivity.
Yes.
And that'll only handle it once principle and clear out your inbox, file stuff.
Right.
But
Right.
maybe training your people how to better manage their emails so they're more productive.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
But if the email's coming through our machines and our servers and such, we can perhaps, not get people too distracted with their inboxes.
Right. Right.
Stuff to think about.
We move on to the next slide. I do want to address flexible hours for a second. Wait, before you go to routines, okay? The flexible hours, because this is this is very important for you as firm leaders to understand. You may or may not have children at home, so this is for people who have children at home, but I want you to understand this. So I was dealing with one of my coaching clients, and we were talking about, he's got 2 children, a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and his wife works full-time also. And so the wife is allowed, because of what she does, she's not a lawyer, she works from 8 a.m. to 3 o'clock. Those are her working hours. He is full-time kid duty. He works from 3:30 to 9 o'clock at night, or till he falls over, he tells me. All right. So part of your dedicated home office is what are the working hours? And usually we don't care when lawyers work. If they want to work at midnight, we just want them to build the time. And that's really, that's what's the most important. But I think you as a firm leader, you need to understand that you need to communicate out to your people, to the lawyers. I'm talking about the staff, to the lawyers. You need to do what works for you. Now, where it affects the staff is this guy who only works from 3:30 to 9 o'clock at night. His assistant typically gets off work at 5. So he's not getting the support that he needs in the later hours. So these are the kinds of things when you think about working remotely and where people are productive and not productive, what they're dealing with. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Routines, rituals. We are creatures of habit, are we not? And, we've had established routines that have been disrupted. And maybe we've got some new routines that we've introduced as a law firm. So Sharon, speak to us about how important it is to maintain valuable routines and maybe introduce some new ones that may stick beyond this near-term pandemic situation.
So I think both you and Yuri have talked about a lot that people are talking more often than they even did in the team and practice group meetings, because you can't walk down the hall and talk to your buddy that's in the same practice group or that's even on the same client matter. So the new routine of team practice group meetings needs to be something we take forward All right. This is a productive use of time. So whatever we're doing now in the Zoom world needs to happen when we do actually go back to work. This should be a new normal that stays. All right. That I just have to put that out there. I remember one of the firms that I've worked with back in the 1990s, they never had meetings. It's like, how could you practice law without meetings? Well, they never thought about having meetings before. I mean, it was the craziest thing to me. Unfortunately, meetings drag on time. And so people will say, well, it's not a productive use of time. Well, meetings can be a very productive use of time if they're done well with agenda. Right, a well-run meeting, if they're done with agendas. Go ahead, Yuri, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things, so yeah, that's correct. We have been hearing over and over pretty consistently. One firm told us last week, John recalls this, where firms said, I've spoken with my executive team in the last 4 weeks more than the last 4 years. I mean, so, and the interesting thing is people are reporting are having more frequent meetings like that, better communication, and better meetings. There's something about, maybe we're not quite yet comfortable just shooting the breeze on these meetings, but it's really much more focused. They're more frequent, but they're very focused. Okay, these are the 3 things on our agenda, boom, boom, boom. And they're just accomplishing more, communicating more.
You know, I often,
we don't have to get in the elevator and go to the conference room to have that meeting, right? So we're already sitting here working, all we're doing, boop, it pops up, now we're talking, it goes away, and we're back to working. So we are being more productive. John, you look like you wanted to.
You know, I often hear this pre-coronavirus, boy, we need to improve our internal communication and our teamwork and our firm first culture, but I don't want meetings.
Right, exactly.
No internal communication without meetings. So I think the key is not meetings for the sake of meetings. Nobody wants to sit through those, but well-run, effective meetings that people want to be a part of.
Right.
And that's because of training your group leaders how to run an effective meeting.
Right. And we'll talk about that.
Or virtually.
Yes.
Some people are good at it. Some people are horrible at it.
Yes.
And so training your group leaders how to run a good virtual meeting is important. We talked a little bit about Zoom and maybe the overuse of Zoom. Not everybody wants to be seen in their bathrobe working in their home office. But are we over Zooming, Uri?
I think we're Zooming just right, John.
Perfect.
All right.
Sharon, what do you
let's get back to rituals. Let's get back to some rituals, because we're going to talk about training and we'll talk about communication a little bit later as well. But routines, how you worked in your office, on your the way you normally worked when you got up and you went to your office every day, you want to copy that as much as possible. So if you're a person that puts everything on a little Post-it note, then that's your to-do list. Put everything on a Post-it note. If you use the to-do list that's available in Outlook, use that. If you have another piece of software, use that. Creating the routine, creating the checklist, creating the to-do list allows you to get that sense of accomplishment. Right now, some of us feel like we're spinning in circles. We don't know what to do first. Everything is happening all at one time. We've got, family and kids and elders and all these other things going on, and we're trying to work. Writing stuff down and being able to do that cross off makes me feel good. It makes me feel productive. And when you study productivity, you don't do the super easy things first because you get that sense of accomplishment. People tend to do those things first. You got to get the hard stuff done first, and then you get that bigger sense of accomplishment. So that's very important to do, to stick with that. And if you left work at 7 o'clock or 7:30 or 5 o'clock or whenever you normally left work on a regular day, still do that. Still do that. Whether you have family, whether you live alone, it doesn't matter. If you turn off at 7 o'clock, go do your exercise, go cook your dinner, whatever it is, still do that. Because what happens when people work at home, and I would like to say from one of the early slides, that it's an opinion that people are not productive working from home. There's lots of people that are extremely productive working from home. And maybe that's what's going to fall out from this virus. We're going to find out that there are a lot of lawyers that can be productive. But what happens when you work from home is that you leave the computer on, and then after dinner, You walk by and you're like, oh, there's an email, I'll do it. And then before you know it, you're working to midnight. Some of you work like that anyway, and that's okay. But I'm just saying, for mental health and what's going on with us right now and everything else, shut down and give yourself that time. So end the workday at the time that you would normally do it. But for productivity measurement, as managing partners, you need to make sure that your people are putting their time in. And I think I've heard that the lawyers are being much better at this than they ever were before, right, guys?
We're hearing
It's-
that fairly consistently, that
Good.
folks have really gotten on it when it comes to
Good.
tracking their time.
So what the newest thing is, and I was on a call yesterday with 42 firm administrators, is the staff using the same timekeeping system and putting what they're doing in the timekeeping system. Not to the 0.6, right? But accomplishments, did some filing, did some work and this, did whatever it was, so that the administrators can see what the staff is doing. And so that they know that things are getting done and that the individuals are being productive. It's much harder for a staff person to be productive when they're not in an office than it is for an attorney. So I just wanted to put those two thoughts out there, guys.
And Marie, you know, we've seen the studies for years that tracking your time contemporaneously is a good thing to do to improve your productivity.
No
At
question.
the end of the day, you lose time. You wait to the end of the week, you've lost more time. And if you wait much longer than that, you're starting to write fiction and really doing yourself a disservice.
Oh,
Um,
there's no question, John. If you don't keep your time daily or contemporaneously, you're either ripping off your clients or ripping off your partners.
Yep.
But to Sharon's point, it took a crisis to get this fixed. It really is amazing. We're hearing, John and I have heard it all over. People are now putting their time in. They want to show their managing partner that they're needed and that they are working. So the only way we know that, we heard from one firm who said, if you don't put your time in at the end of the day, I check at 10 a.m. the next morning. If your time's not in, my assumption is you took a day off yesterday, and it hits their PTO.
We'll talk about KPIs in a moment, because what you measure tends to get done. What you measure tends to be improving. So what are you as a managing partner really honing in on in terms of your measurements? And we'll look at some of those in a moment. It's not always the same for every law firm. Sleep is important. Boy, does Arianna Huffington like to talk about the importance of getting a good night's rest. We're all stressed out, and getting your exercise, getting your rest is really, really important. You know, we've talked a lot about communication already, and firms are really getting creative, both formal channels and informal channels. We hear about Zoom happy hours. We hear about game nights where people log in and play Trivial Pursuits, Facebook water coolers. Larry Richard talks about the importance of personal outreach to those people who may be vulnerable. And that's a very, very important moral and ethical obligation of firm leaders to show that care, concern, compassion for your people. And picking up the phone and asking from time to time, how you doing? Is there anything the firm can do to help? That
John?
sort of thing is really, really important. Yes,
John, we've got communicate, communicate, communicate. We got 3 communications here. So one is to communicate with your lawyers. The next one is to communicate with your staff. And the third one is to communicate with your clients. All right. So we've been talking a lot about communicating with your lawyers. So I don't think we need to address that. I want to address clients very quickly, and then I want to jump to staff. If you are not communicating more with your clients, you're doing yourself a disservice. Right now, clients are looking for information. At the same time, we're also reading in law.com and American Lawyer, too much, you're overkilling me. I got too much information. I'm talking about your specific clients. If you drove in an hour or took a train an hour every day and you called a client on your way to work every day because that was part of your client service or your business development, do that. Continue to do that. Don't talk about virus stuff. Talk about whatever it was that you would normally talk about on that drive to work, on that drive home. Check in with your clients, just like you said about Larry saying, we need to check in on our people. You need to check in on your clients. Some of your clients are actually friends of yours, and some of your clients, you would like them to become friends of yours. So this is a time to do that. But I want to talk about communicating with staff, all right? Staff tend to get left out of a lot of things. And a question that came through the survey, John, was how can my staff be more helpful to the attorneys? So productivity basically is what they're asking for. So my very first answer that popped in my head is communicate with your staff. First of all, in the office, your assistant can read your mind. We all know assistants can do that. But when there's, miles and miles and miles away from the attorneys, assistants can't read your mind anymore. So you as firm leaders need to tell your attorneys, and even if an assistant has 4 or 5 attorneys that they work for, every one of those attorneys should call the support person and say, this is the kind of support I need. This is what I'm looking for. Maybe they can help, maybe they can't help. They're not making photocopies anymore, right? They're not going to get coffee anymore, but they can help with certain documents and all of that. So communication with the staff as to what it is that attorneys need needs to be between that attorney and the assistant, not through the office administrator or the person in charge of the secretarial pool. It needs to be attorney to the staff member, and that's paralegals included. All right, just I needed to put that out there, so I'm done with that. Thank you.
Communicate, blend the approaches. Nothing beats, I think, a face-to-face, but absent that, the phone call, the video, the emails, communicate. Mentoring and training, something that's lacking in many firms.
Under normal
Our young
circumstances.
people, their training and development. And just because we're not in the office as much as we used to be, that doesn't mean our training and development program flies out the window. Sharon,
Yes.
This is what you do. So
This is my
talk
passion.
to us about how important this is.
Yes, this is my absolute passion. And you have associates that started last fall, and they're coming up on their 1-year anniversary. They don't know how to practice law yet. I mean, they're pretending. You have to remember, for the first 3 months, they don't know what they're doing, right? So that brings us to the beginning of this year. And then the next 3 months brings us into the May and June time period where they're figuring it out. Now, the May to the end of the year would have been their most productive times as a first year. Well, what the heck is going on? Can they be productive? They don't have the attorney down the hall to say, I don't know what to do. And they don't even have, well, they should have the leadership giving them the feedback that they need, but that might not be happening because spring and summer, a lot of people do reviews in the May time period. Is that going to happen at your firm? If you do the mid-year review, are you going to do it? Is your technology able to work? Are you going to do sit downs via Zoom or over the phone? You still need to give that feedback to your youngest ones, all right? No matter what, your youngest ones. But then there's onboarding. There's people still hiring lawyers. I see the ads there. It's out there. Well, how are you onboarding them? Are you completely electronic in your onboarding? A lot of firms have. You need to read this document and sign it. You need to watch this anti-harassment video and click the boxes and all that kind of stuff. But the onboarding for somebody coming on that's a first year, we won't even go there. That's a whole summer thing. I'll talk about that in just a second. But just onboarding a lateral, could be a 4th year, could be a partner. Are you capable of doing this at your firm? Have you addressed it with the right people? Depending on the size of the firm, your firm administrator is probably the one who's been handling it. They're pulling their hair out trying to figure out how to open the office, right, and get people back safely. They haven't even been thinking about what are we going to do with onboarding people in the fall or the laterals and all that. So that's a huge thing that needs to be addressed. And there are services out there that will take your materials and put them into an online format and all of that.
Yep.
I can give John some of that information where he could share with you all about that. But just the regular CLE and onboarding, not onboarding, the CLE stuff that you need to do, PLI and Micron are big supporters of Managing Partner Forum. PLI just did a whole big campaign. I don't know if you all are on it.
Mhm.
We have 15,000 hours of CLE. So there's all that's out there. But you know that your associates and your partners like learning from each other more than anybody. And you can still continue to do your CLE credits and all of that. Some of the states would say, oh, no, you can't do online training. Well, guess what? Just like all the other rules that I mentioned earlier that are changing, these are changing too. And states that wouldn't let you get CLE this way are now allowing it. So that's something that you can look into. You'd have somebody in your team look into, and they can figure that out. So I want to address, but go ahead. And then I do want to come back.
Young lawyers, I really tune into young lawyers. I love working with young partners and associates that have that fire in the belly, want to make some things happen. And they crave evaluation, mentoring, feedback. Where am I on that track to equity? And so often they're just not getting as much as they'd like. And just because we're not together in the office doesn't mean we can't provide the mentoring, the training, the feedback. It's just going to be done a bit differently.
It's
But
even
don't forget about it.
It has to be intentional, much more intentional now.
Intentional. We've heard that word, intentional associate feedback. I had a client that did something so simple as pizza with a partner. And, once a month, one of the senior partners would come in and have all questions on the table and allow the young lawyers to pick his or her brain for an hour and a half. Food works to attract people to a meeting, but pizza with a partner, that's easy. Doesn't cost us much of anything. We learned last week, I think it was, one of the managing partners on our conference calls was talking about Tech Tuesday. And we put our IT folks out there to teach folks how to use the technology more proficiently, and people want to come and learn. It's been remarkably successful. Tech Tuesday.
Well,
Sharon,
the pizza part, I just want to address on the administrative call that I was facilitating yesterday. They said this was a small firm in one location. They sent cupcakes to every single person in the office. So pizza, you can do a Papa John's delivery probably anywhere you want. So you could still do that and then have a Zoom meeting and eat your pizza. Anyway, Yuri, go ahead. I just wanted to get that up there.
Thank you, Sharon. Now, we had a question related to what you said before, and it's really relevant to this. So you've already pointed out that measuring lawyers is something that we're all used to, and let's face it, collections, hours, those are the normal metrics. So one of our participants has asked, any suggestions for how we assess better ways for our non-attorney staff, I know you don't like that, non-attorney staff to work and be more helpful to our attorneys remotely. So I'll expand that question, which is, how do you have any tools for how to evaluate staff, and how do we get our attorneys to know what you just said before, which is they don't read your mind when you're miles away?
Right. So one of the things I said before for measurement is to have staff put time into your timekeeping system, or something as simple as just a memo into the system. If you have Microsoft Teams, you could do it in Microsoft Teams. But one of the things that is really important is most firms have document management systems, right? And so you share documents and you can see who has touched and worked on documents. So that's a tool that can be used to monitor if people are actually in there touching, working on things. And it's a way to get additional support. So what I think is happening is the younger lawyers who are very good with a keyboard versus dictation, things like that, right? They're just going ahead and doing the documents. They're just knocking them out, and they, spell check and all that. You don't really need an assistant. I think it's the more senior attorneys that need a little bit more of that assistance. So it's, depending on what you have, whether you do a Mac or 365, there is dictation ability. So they can still dictate into the computer, because now they're not dictating into a dictaphone and transcribe. I do still see lawyers who are doing, assistants who are doing transcription. So again, it's just looking at the tools. What is it the person needs? And then the administrator or the tech person has to figure out what that solution is, all right? And if the staff person doesn't know what it is that the attorney is looking for, they cannot support them. So back to that communication. It's important. Measuring, all right? So our staff don't punch time clocks. I think some firms maybe still have time clocks.
Oh, au contraire,
Well, I was going to
those
say the
central
computer
clocks
is the time clock, right? The computer, they can see when, back to the conversation about technology, if it's a firm issued computer, or through the tunnel when they've VPN'd or however Citrixed in or whatever it is they've done, you see when they've logged in, and you can go back and look and see how long they've been online. Granted, they could be online and not working, right? Because we're not, remember the days when we used to do keystrokes and we used to charge by keystroke? Whew, that was a long time ago.
Or how about when you have to do online driver improvement school? You're not paying attention to the 4-hour course.
Sharon, we have a related question to this, and I think this is on a lot of people's minds. It's worth addressing. So Sharon, any suggestions for expectations of staff responsiveness in the remote environment when you can't walk in and say, please do this? We are seeing growing frustrations in the erratic response times. Now, this is one of the managing partners saying, my advice has been to call them, but they don't want to constantly do that. What's a fair expectation? That's me editing.
So what is a fair expectation? Yuri, if I was your assistant, I would need you to tell me what is a fair expectation, and we need to discuss it. Yuri, I have 12 children at home. So from 10 o'clock till 12 o'clock, I'm not available. But I will do all of your work when they go down for their nap at 3. Everyone, I do not have 12 children at home. Mine are grown and grown. I just didn't want anybody to think I had 12 children. But without
Sharon,
we don't know. But
okay, so but we can't have all of the staff telling all the attorneys that I'm only available at that time.
Correct. So team support, right?
Okay.
So if I like I was telling about that husband and wife that do a team support, if there are most law firms, the assistants and paralegals work in groups, and they are cross-trained and they can support each other. Again, this is an administrator who's very busy worrying about other things, isn't focusing on, and I was going to use all women's names as examples, but I won't. I'm going to say Jonathan and Mary are a team that can support 5 attorneys. Jonathan and Mary and the 5 attorneys need to talk. Who is going to be best for what time period and for immediate response? Now, I will tell you, texting, right? Texting, if you say, if I text you, then it is something that's urgent, because an email I might not be looking at as quickly, right? If I call you on the phone, it might be even more urgent because I need you right now. But again, that's the communication. If an assistant is working in a document, okay, they aren't necessarily looking at their emails. Now, some people have pop-ups. You can IM if you have Microsoft Teams, if you have Skype, what tools does your firm have? It goes back to what are the tools that you have so that you can communicate with each other and discuss that. It's all about talking to each other. It's marriage counseling. I'm sorry. It's just the same as marriage counseling. You just have to communicate. And the expectation is if you're working, I expect you to be available to me. And if you can't because you're homeschooling or whatever the problems are, then we need to work it out.
Clearly defined expectations and feedback, right? I mean, clearly defined expectations. Clients want it in 2 hours now. It used to be, within 24 hours, that was acceptable, but now we're down to 2 hours in terms of response to a phone call, response to an email. I like responsiveness when I'm working with people. That's important to me, and people know that.
I want to go back to the question. I want to go back to Yuri's question though for one more thing. If you give the employees phones, beepers, something like that, they can distinguish between what is my personal phone ringing and the firm phone ringing, something like that. So I am watching Sopranos, which I never watched back in the 1990s. And when Tony Soprano's phone rang, no matter what he was doing, he answered it. So he knew that that was important.
But
So
then you can have special ringtones too, that when your spouse is calling, you get a special ringtone. You know, I need to be on that. Same thing, if you're an assistant, you've got 4 or 5 lawyers you're supporting, you know, you can set up customized ringtones for each of them.
and this goes back to, and then I will shut up about this topic, Yuri, something that has happened in law firms since the beginning of time, where the attorneys do not communicate their needs effectively. And they just want people to read their minds. And so it goes back to, again, understanding what it is that I need and being able to communicate what it is and giving the tools to the people who need to do it. And sometimes attorneys don't feel comfortable with that communication. It's a personality thing. You need to bring in the administrator, another third person to help with that facilitation. Okay.
So we were talking about measuring what you measure, and we did some surveying last year on KPIs, what firms look at, and these are among the KPIs that we see commonly applied to law firms. Certainly the billable contributions, and firms look at hours, collections, utilization, realization. You know, the expected billable contribution for most mid-sized firms rests around 1,900 billable hours, 1,900. Is that going to change now that people aren't as, quote, productive working at home? Might we see that minimum billable hour expectation change? I don't know, no right or wrong, but what are you measuring? And how do you measure it? And are those expectations clear in terms of billable contributions, the firm building contributions, the business development, the leadership, the mentoring, all that non-billable stuff that in many firms doesn't get tracked, measured, rewarded, tends not to get done. But I think if we want to see our young lawyers, for example, out doing business development, we should find ways to measure, reward, track that activity, and track the marketing time, and define what counts, what doesn't count, and find ways to measure, reward that time. When we were putting together our set of questions on KPIs, I asked some of our faculty who were numbers people, CPA types, what should a firm leader be paying attention to in terms of key performance indicators? And this is the accountants coming in with some pretty enlightened stuff. Third bullet point, client satisfaction. That's an important measurement. Are we measuring client satisfaction? 70% of firms say no. What about staff satisfaction? Happy employees are productive employees. They're loyal employees. And are we measuring staff satisfaction? Have you checked out your Glassdoor account lately to see what your staff, former and current, have to say about what your firm's like? Are we measuring staff satisfaction? Associate retention. A lot of firms will report that we're pretty good at recruiting young lawyers. Keeping them is a bit more challenging. Associate attrition is expensive. Staff attrition is expensive. And are we measuring these and trying to improve it by hiring better? Sharon, we did our fall symposium on hiring the right people and then investing in them so they stay and they're productive and they're happy and they're loyal. Some firms starting to introduce firm culture indexes, which is kind of cool as well. So what gets measured tends to get done. What gets measured tends to improve. So what are you as a managing partner measuring? How are you measuring, and how are you reporting that information? Who sees what, when, how, and why? I find so often associates feel a little disconnected when it comes to what's expected of them, how they're doing. They're not getting that feedback. So when you share with an associate his or her performance, does he or she see it compared to the other associates? Is he or she getting feedback on where they're doing well, where they're not doing well? But what you share, how you share it, is all stuff to think about in terms of what you're measuring, what you're rewarding, and how you define productivity. So some stuff to think about. KPIs.
I just have a point. If you were not focusing on KPIs in the past, in the new environment where that FaceTime, it's just not there. Oh, Joe, yeah, I know Joe's working really hard. Mary, I saw her working late last night. You're not going to be seeing people as much as you used to, or you can't rely on it because maybe Mary does not come so fast back to the office. In fact, Mary now works from home 50 or 80% of the time. But Mary's a superstar. Mary is a superstar. We need to focus on KPIs that are much more logical, much more fixed, tracked, and then of course communicated.
Or not communicated. I mean, you know, I work.
I'm an
some
optimist.
firms are remarkably transparent in what they share with associates, for example, in terms of performance, even partner performance, compensation.
Mhm.
Most firms are pretty guarded with what they share, particularly with the associates. But you know, what you measure, what you track, what you share does matter, and it should be intentional. I think that intentionality thing, Uri, we've talked about.
John, you know, what you measure and what you track is important, but it's also whether you hold people accountable, because you
Mhm.
can measure the billable hour, but if you don't hold people accountable for putting their time in a timely fashion, or you could do associate evaluations, but if you don't hold people accountable for actually completing the evaluations, it's still, those are great KPIs, but from my 30 years in law, it's holding your partners accountable to get the work done that they feel isn't as important as the billable hour, and that's sometimes difficult.
Well, and that's leadership, accountability, and boy, we could do a full day on lawyer accountability and staff accountability. We all know lawyers like autonomy, particularly when they become owners. They like autonomy, but yeah, accountability is really, really important. Uri, this is your slide. What the heck is AC, by the way?
Yeah, I kind of view the world BC and AC. BC is before COVID, and AC is after COVID. You know, I think this return to normal is there's no normal. It's changed. It's a misnomer. We're going back. We are moving forward. We're changing. So the AC world is really a misnomer. It's you know, of course, you've mentioned the Cushman Wakefield report, which is an excellent report. It doesn't really focus, obviously, on what Sharon's been talking about, which is how are we integrating the AC world of work environment as a lawyer? How are we going to do that well? Because I think I said in the beginning, our clients will not accept 20 to 25% reductions in productivity and pay. That cannot be acceptable long term. So I think we should focus on the physical, but the physical is only a part of it.
Well, you know, firms are starting to work on this stuff, and we will share.
And they should.
What we accumulate. A lot of people send stuff to Uri and me and Sharon, and we're happy to, you know, be the you know, clearinghouses for this stuff. I've gotten quite a few return to work plans. If anyone wants to contact us offline, happy to share, and we will be featuring these in our weekly and within the handout materials of these webinars as well. New normal, we're going to hear that term a lot.
One of the questions that came in through the survey was, what are 3 pitfalls in this return to work plan? And these are the 3 that struck me, and I think the 2 of you need to answer it as well. To me, the 3 things are, this is the return to work plan. So the first thing that came to mind is the number 1 concern is personal safety. In the administrator group that I was talking to, they are all worried about how are they going to keep their staff safe from each other. I mean, really, that's what it is. So personal safety. The second one is how are we going to reconfigure the space so that we can do like the social distancing and buying the plexiglass. And we were talking about before, I was saying receptionists, they need to be behind, you know, glass so that people aren't sneezing and talking at them. And what are we going to do with conference room space and all of that? Oh, and coffee, where's the coffee maker going to be? So all of that, there's a 1 and 2, personal safety and space. And then the third one, I'm going to go back to Dr. Larry, is just the continued anxiety related to what if I go to the office, somebody sticks a thermometer in my mouth and I'm fine, yet the guy who delivered the FedEx on the package that I then open, now I've got it. And so I think personal safety, what we're gonna do with space, and then dealing with the anxiety and stress are my 3 pitfalls. Guys, what are yours?
Well, I'll just start. I think you can't underestimate the safety point, Sharon. I mean, nothing is secure, but 100% secure. But I do hear a lot of firms going really to extreme ends on that, or at least my perception, extreme ends. And I think that makes a lot of sense, both in terms of keeping your people safe, as well as the second, equally important, because at the end of the day, we're in the people business. Happy people make good people, which is one firm shared with me. They have decided, now it'll be at least a 3-month expenditure, to communicate to their people how important it is, their safety, that they're hiring a full-time employee to walk around the firm and wipe down all the communal spaces. It's a pretty significant expenditure, but at the end of the day, the way you communicate to your people how much you care during this crisis, they're going to remember that. Coming back to the office, that's the most important thing, I think. And John, as many firms have said to us, we don't have to open our offices, but our people do have to feel safe where they are.
There's no rush to get back to the office.
Yes.
We're doing okay. We've settled into our remote working environments. The sky is not falling. We've heard fairly consistently, going isolated was easier than we thought. We settled in pretty good. But bringing folks back in a safe, secure environment, get a plan. Got to have a plan. And now's the time to work on that. So we'll be doing a webinar on this topic, and I'll share with you some stuff in the handout materials we'll send out a little later on today. I'm looking at the hour. We're at the top of it, so our time is done. From the get-go, Uri, this is from our first webinar where you and I flew solo or duo and talked about how important this stuff is. As a firm leader, boy, your leadership is being tested. People are looking to you. That cool, calm, collected, even-keeled, on top of things, paying attention to what's going on, really stepping up and exercise leadership and care about your people. Really, really important. We've had many managing partners in our calls talk about how in times of crisis before 9/11, hurricanes, when we have stepped up and really demonstrated care and concern for our people, because we do care about them, it has come back to us so many times over in terms of the loyalty, the work ethic, the dedication. And we have come out of these crises stronger and more unified and collaborative than ever. So look for the silver lining and the opportunities that are being thrust upon us. We don't have any choice. We're here to provide resources. We've got these webinars. We hope you'll tune in and participate. Handout material. Our next one, where we're going to look at this PPP program, is on May 13, so stay tuned. We run a listserv. It's been very, very chatty. It's a lot of RTO return to office data and information shared there just this morning. A number of managing partners talked about what their firms were doing, and good stuff. We run conference calls as well for folks who attend our leadership conferences, which segues into our next one, which we postponed till the fall, September 30, October 1 here in Atlanta. A few places have opened up because we did have to reschedule. So if you want to come, get in touch with us and we'll see if we can't work you in and get you registered. So keep an eye out for that as well. Here's our contact information. You can tell I did well with the animation on our closing slide, but Uri's happy to chat with you if you contact him offline. There's his phone number, his email address, Sharon as well. We are here to help, and please avail yourselves to our expertise and familiarity with the legal profession. Sharon, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. And Uri, it's always good to be with you.
Thank you, John.
And we'll see you next time. And thanks for being with us, everybody, and have a good rest of the week.
And stay safe.
Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye, everybody. All right, hang on.